before the introduction of our keynote speaker and our keynote speaker, I'm going to do an SPC infomercial while I got you here. First of all, for our high school students, if you would just stand up where you are. So I want everyone to know the abundance of high school students that we have here. Thank you. For our high school students, I can't stress enough how important it is to pursue your education beyond high school. And we're not saying that you got to go to Harvard, Yale, or any of those places. You can come right here to St. Petersburg College. And what we are saying is that you need to take that next step after high school to get the training, certificate, or degree so that you can secure a job that's going to take care of you financially. Some of you got an opportunity to go to the investment seminar and learn about the things that you need to do for retirement. Well, that starts with planning your future. And that future starts with you figuring out what you're going to do at the next level of education. For our St. Petersburg College students, we've put a number of systems and processes in place over the last 18 months. And some of you are taking advantage of them. Some of you may not know about them. Some of you may not be taking advantage of them. But if you're here at St. Petersburg College, and if you haven't begun to plan out your curriculum, plan out the courses you're going to take a real keen look at what your interest is, whether it's going to be a general AA, AS, or a certificate, you need to get in to see an advisor. Sit down with them and ask them to help you plan out the direction that you're going for the rest of your time here at the college. You need to finish what you start. We've had posters posted all over the campuses here that's commit to complete. And if you haven't commit to complete, you need to do that the next time you're at the Student Center and you see that poster or they ask you about it. Make sure that you commit to complete. We have some of the best tutorial service and learning support centers anywhere in the country. If you haven't had an opportunity to go in there, if you haven't found your way there, you need to find your way there so that you can stay afloat. When the studies begin to challenge you some, that is the absolute best place for you to be in order to get the help you need to be successful. At St. Petersburg College, we believe in taking you by the hand, wrapping our arms around you, and making sure you get from point A to point B, which is some sort of credential. So we ask that you stay in there, hang in there with us, take advantage of all the services we've got. We got vendors set up over in the lobby of the UPC Center. We've got a very dynamic career and veteran services. So make sure that you stop at those tables, get additional information, and do the follow-up when you get back to your home campuses. And again, we're so excited about you being here. Hope that the experience is worthwhile for you. And if you're here again next year, come back and do it with us again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Darrell Henderson. I am the online proctor testing coordinator for St. Pete College, and I have the great privilege of introducing our keynote speaker today. You can read his most impressive bio in your program. I first met Jimmy Lee Solomon back in 2006 while I was still working for the Office of Minor League Baseball. In December 2006 was the baseball winter meetings here in Orlando, Florida. For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. But it was my first winter meetings, and as I am prone to do, I was all about networking and making connections and building relationships. So I made a very short list of people that I wanted to meet at that winter meetings, and this gentleman was at the very top of that list. I don't know if he remembers, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I summoned the courage, and I walked up and I introduced myself. And through the next 6 years while I was in baseball, I never got to work with him directly on any specific project. I worked with some people who worked in his office. But that's the thing about networking and building relationships, because if you make a decent impression, people will remember you. Very first planning meeting for this event that I attended, we were still looking for a keynote speaker. And I said, well, I know someone. I don't know if he'll remember me, but you can always ask the question, right? The worst thing they can do is say no. And I was shocked and very pleased when he not only remembered who I am, but after we worked out the logistics, he very enthusiastically agreed to be with us today. It is an honor and a privilege for me to introduce Jimmy Lee Solomon.
Good morning. It is still morning, isn't it? Let me first start by, thanking a few people who made this all possible. Transamerica, of course. Mr. Scott Russell, who just spoke. You don't know how important it is that corporate America does believe in education, because if they do not, they don't put in the type of funds necessary to do events like this. So it's very important that we understand the importance of sponsorship, corporate America's understanding of what this mission is in its college, and that your future is the future of that corporation as well as our society. So I think they deserve a round of applause. In addition, I want to thank Dr. Jim Oliver. Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Kevin Gordon. I want to thank the St. Petersburg College Max program. I want to also thank Darrell Henderson, because Darrell was the first person that reached out to me. Darrell is one of my Facebook friends. Now, as old as I am, I never thought I'd say Facebook friends, but I actually have gotten a little better at social media, and I'm kind of getting to be known by the smart comments I write when I'm encouraging people to do better and to make their lives, sing out in the way it should. So when Darrell did ask me, I did remember. And I told him I would if I could, and I'm glad we could work it out. So Darrell, thank you very much for nominating me to the committee. Normally I speak to corporations mostly, but I have a commitment to myself that I speak with young people at least 4 or 5 times a year, and I do my best to work it out. You see, you guys are actually what's going to be my excuse not to go to the Super Bowl. My best friend from law school is the executive vice president of football operations for the NFL, and every year he invites me to the Super Bowl. But every year it's in a dome stadium or in a southern part of the country. This was the first time it was going to be in the northern, especially northeast, and with the cold front we've been having, it was like unlikely that a southern boy from Baton Rouge, Texas would want it to go. So I said this would be a great way to have an excuse not to go. Well, he wasn't having it. He called me up. He said, "What time are you speaking?" I started clearing my throat. He said, "I can look it up now." I said, "Okay, I'm speaking at lunch." He said, "There are no flights from Tampa that gets you into New York in time for my 8 o'clock party?" I said, well, it's forecasted for bad weather. He said, "I'll check the weather. Looks like you can make it." So I'm leaving here after my speech to go to LaGuardia and fly into New York and go to the Super Bowl. But I thought it was very important that I be here. The last person I want to thank before we get started with my speech is Frank Yurkovich. Frank, are you here? Frank's not here. Well, I'll tell you about Frank. When I first saw Frank at the airport, he picked me up. He's supposed to take me back, so he better get back. He picked me up, and I said, I looked at his name. Of course, I pronounced it phonetically. Yurkovich. Yurkovich. No, that's what I saw. He says, "No, Yurkovich." I said, okay, what is that? He said, "It's Slavic and Polish." I said, "Okay, cool, I got you, Slavic and Polish. But I'm from St. Petersburg." I said, "Okay, good, I'm with you all the way." So we get into the car, and we got to drive here. So I jump up a little conversation. He tells me about the program, tells me about the students that will be here today, gives me some of the great programs that you all are doing to enhance male retention in the school and all the other great programs. And then he says, oh, by the way, I said, we don't have till about 12:30, the kids are going to eat, and there's the limitations. I said, well, you didn't tell me any limitations when we got started. You told me it was going to be free flow. He said, well, I'm just letting you know the time limits. He said, but just do one thing. I said, what's that? He said, follow the 5 B's of public speaking. I said, what? He said, the 5 B's of public speaking. I said, you mind telling me what that is? He said, be brief, brother, be brief. Now, I'm a little shocked at this. Number one, I'm a little shocked that I don't know the 5 B's of public speaking. Number two, I'm shocked that the man thinks I'm long-winded. But did he tell me he was Slavic and Polish? He a brother too? The college asked me if I wanted to have any AV equipment, any setup for video or PowerPoint. And I usually have canned speeches, canned videos, based upon the audience I'm talking to. I have my speech for my mixed crowd, my speech for my brothers, speech for the white boys. I have my speech for the old people. I have my speech for the Republicans and one for the Democrats. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just sit up and talk. What I'm going to try to do when I talk to you is talk to you about the importance of education, the importance of education in my life, the importance of education in my professional career. And I'm going to tell you a personal story that's a little bit off track, but it'll explain to you how I feel about manhood and what my key to manhood truly is. Now, you probably read a few things about me. I grew up in Texas on a farm about 35 miles from Houston. My father was a farmer. My grandfather was a farmer. We pretty much were thought that we were all going to work on the farm. All my father really wanted me to do was to get a high school diploma and basically work with him. There was no world beyond the farm as far as he was concerned. But my grandfather had other ideas. My grandfather used to tell people I would be a lawyer, a doctor, or a preacher. He believed that because he had spent some time, a very short time, at Tuskegee University, way back in the day. And he instilled in me a desire to go beyond what my father was doing, working on the farm, and try to get myself into society in a productive manner that would not necessarily make me intersect with the criminal justice system. So I played football, I ran track, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. Also, I got good grades. I applied myself in school because I knew those were very important things for me. I was able to go to Dartmouth College and then to Harvard Law School. I practiced law for 10 years in Washington, D.C., and was a partner with the firm of Baker and Hostetler. I left baseball I left the practice of law in 1991 and went to Major League Baseball. My first job was the executive director of minor league operations for Major League Baseball. My next job was the senior vice president of baseball operations for Major League Baseball. My next job was the executive vice president of baseball operations and development for Major League Baseball. I spent 21 years in Major League Baseball working as an executive. This is a poor little country boy from backwoods, Texas, who happened to believe that education was possible for him and happened to believe that would be my pathway from the farm into the mainstream of society and even in a leadership role. Very important. Now, while at Major League Baseball, this evidenced itself when I had the opportunity to impact urban America by putting academies into urban places. I'll explain to you how it started. Baseball was being criticized about the number of African Americans that were playing in the field. diversity on our field was starting to drop a little bit. So the commissioner asked for ideas for us to figure out a way to impact that number and to make better our commitment into urban America. I propose that we do the same thing in urban America that we were doing in the Dominican Republic, in Venezuela, in Colombia, and other Latin American countries. Because if you look out and you'll wonder, wow, all these Dominican kids can really play ball. Well, there's a reason for that. There are 30 academies in the Dominican Republic. There are 10 academies in Venezuela. And there are academies in Nicaragua, Colombia, even in Brazil, Panama. But there are no academies in the United States. So the numbers were dropping. They dropped from a high of 27% of African Americans in baseball in the mid-'70s to a low today of 8%. 8%. Now, a lot of things caused that. The competition with the more popular football and basketball now. Also, the fact that it costs so much to run a baseball program in the inner city, because most city budgets are finite, recreational programs are finite. People put in a basketball blacktop with a basketball and a goal. No maintenance costs, no space requirements, no equipment costs. So it makes sense. All the baseball programs migrated outside. So I came in and put academies in Compton, in Houston, New Orleans, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we have contracts for academies in Philadelphia and Miami. Houston was the first partnership we did with a major league team, and then Cincinnati decided to copycat and build their own academy, and Washington, D.C. is another academy with Washington Nationals. Now, why are these academies important, and why should it be important to you? Each academy either is situated or affiliated with a community college. Every one of them provides a link from that community into the system of higher education. We had a three-pronged curriculum in every academy: baseball instruction, vocational instruction, and educational instruction. You say, well, I don't get it. Vocational? Yes. There are many jobs in baseball that have nothing to do with playing baseball. For some reason, we only focus on being a player. Do you know that an umpire works 5 months a year, and the top umpire in Major League Baseball made $400,000? That a head groundskeeper who works about the same number of months makes $100,000 per year? Good work if you can get it, right? Nobody focuses on that. Therefore, in those communities, Compton, Houston, New Orleans, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Cincinnati, Ohio, Washington, D.C., hopefully soon in Philadelphia, and then in Miami, we will have these curriculums all being taught to the young kids there. Now, the important curriculums for me were the vocational curriculums, because everybody was not the same. Everybody was not going to go to a four-year college. There are many jobs in this society that provide a very, very good living. They have nothing to do with a four-year institution or getting a college four-year degree. I think that's very important. But it's also important to know that you've got to get a skill set that allows you an opportunity, a chance to be successful in our society. Without it, you have no chance. And if you look at the way the world's evolving and the speed to which technology is taking this world away, if you don't jump on the merry-go-round now, you have a hard time jumping on it later. It's very important. So I look at the student body here. I was studying it up before I got here. Now, I went to Dartmouth. Everybody was pretty much the same age, between 22 and 18 years old. My understanding is that the student body in all the various campuses here skews a little higher than that. Some of the students have jobs. Some of the students are older, maybe closer to 25, 26, 27, possibly even 28 or 29. And some of the students have kids, which means you have to learn to juggle your schedules, You have other obligations. You have to figure out ways to budget your money so that you can do the things you need to do, as well as pay for your classes, get to and from, things of that nature. Life is not a cookie-cutter life anymore. No more. It's not so simple as it was when there was Leave It to Beaver. Now life is complicated. Life has hurdles. Life has roadblocks. It is our job to make sure those roadblocks become detours. That's all I do is set you aside to go a different direction. And you all are understanding that you've got to keep going, and you've got to make do with what you've got, and you've got to find a way to a better end result. Because if you don't know your end result, every time you move the piece like in chess, if you don't know your end result, you're just moving pieces. So you've got to figure those things out. Now, the way I look at the educational process is that you use that as a tool to help you. This institution is here as a place to help you. We all have problems. We all are going to have times when it's going to be less than ideal. I just told a story to my friends at the lunch table. You know, everybody wants things to be just right before they go off and do it. The time wasn't right. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I just can't get it done. I have a golf buddy. Lines up the tee every time. Gets up there and he waggles the club. Steps back, the wind gusts, he steps back. I can't hit. He gets back up at the tee. He waggles around, a bug flies by. I can't hit. He gets back. Somebody back kind of clears their throat. You're making noise. I say, man, you're shooting 98. Hit the damn ball. I mean, the time is never going to be perfect. That's the same in life. It's never perfect. Sometimes you got to hit the damn ball. Shot goes where it does, and you get a chance to do it again. Even if you hit a perfect shot, as a friend once told me, all it gives you is a chance to do it again. Life is full of shots. Take the shot. You'll never hit a good shot if you never hit it. Michael Jordan once said he missed every shot he didn't take. So what you got to do is you got to make a decision to step forward and do it. And no matter what your burdens are, no matter what your financial burdens, your family burdens, no matter what they are, you got to make a decision. Life ain't always going to be as you planned it out. Now, I'm going to share something with you. This is a little personal story. Now, I didn't share this with too many people, but I'm going to share it with y'all. Y'all are my close friends, right? We all vibe. We all living together, right? We all vibing, okay. When I was a young attorney, really, first time in my life I really had any real money. I was making a little cash, had a nice car, was dressing well. I was like, I can dig this. This being a lawyer thing is kind of nice. I'm loving this. So now I'm getting a few accolades. People are saying that I'm the up and coming and all this, and Jimmy Lee this, Jimmy Lee that. I'm loving it. So I was asked to come back home and give a speech. So I said, great. We'll get a little recognition from the home folks. Like this. So I go home. And when I go into the auditorium, it is packed with people. You know, they hometown boy, done well, comes back home. I said, I like this. I walked out there and I started talking. So I started talking much the same as I'm talking now. I'm imploring that the little kids understand the need for more education, staying in school and doing their thing, and taking the bull by the horns, accepting your obligations and doing what you need to do. So when we finished up, a lot of people lined up to shake my hand. So I'm shaking hands, and one of the teachers said, you know what? A lot of the little kids didn't get a chance to talk to you. Would you mind coming by the little side room over here and saying hi to them? I said, absolutely. Hey, I'm magnanimous. Let's go. So I go over, and all these kids are in the room. I sit down with them for about 45 minutes and talk to them. Tell them about my life, tell them where I'm from, explain to them what classroom I was in, the whole bit. Finally, finish up, and a few of them want to come up and talk to me, so I do. So one little girl comes up. She's about 12, 13 years old. And she says, hi. I say, hello, how are you? And I'm looking at her, I'm saying, I'll bet she's one of my cousins. I said, are you Donna? She says, no, there's Donna right there. I said, you're looking at me like you know me. She said, oh, I know you. I said, who am I? My mama said, you're my daddy. Well, I said, who is your mama? She said, Jan Davison. I said, how old are you? 12, almost 13. Can we talk later? Long story short, that little girl was my daughter, who I had never laid eyes on, didn't know existed, had no clue, none whatsoever. I had gone out with her mother just as I was leaving to go to college. And basically, when I went off, I never really came back. Her mother lived across in a different community that was not my community, so our families never met each other or anything. But what I did find out was that my daughter was at risk, tremendous risk. And I knew she needed to get out of that environment. That was not convenient for me. I had just made a partner. I was about to change careers because I'd already started interviewing with the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball. My daughter continued to call me, and I continued to hear the problems that she was having, living in poverty, living at risk. So I decided to bring her to my home in D.C. for a summer. I was going to fix everything in a summer. So I brought her there. And I was going to lay on the hands, and everything was going to be all right. It was the worst summer of my life. She didn't bring her instruction manual. She came. So we fought and we had fights all summer. We argued, and finally it was time for her to go back home. And I was so happy I threw a party. We went to the Cheesecake Factory. Everybody was partying. Everybody's happy. And I look over, and my daughter's sitting there by herself. She's crying. So I walk over and I get her. I take her outside. I say, what's wrong? She said, I don't want to go back. I said, what do you mean? We've been fighting like cats and dogs. You told me you hated me about 100 times or something. You can go back to be with your family, be back to be with your friends. School starts soon. Why are you crying? She said, if I go back down there, I'll never have a chance to be like you. And I said, if you follow my rules, then you never have to go back down there. Welcome to Shawshank. I brought my daughter in to live with me less than a year after I met her. Now, that put my life in total turmoil because now my plans were not smooth anymore. I couldn't relocate her, uproot her from home, then uproot her a second time immediately, just based on the whims of my career. I had to set up a structure for her so she could be successful. It was important for me to recognize my priorities as a man and what manhood meant to me. Manhood didn't mean getting rich. Manhood didn't mean over here talking the talk. It meant walking the walk. It meant sitting my needs and put on the back burner and help a young person figure out what she needed in order to be successful. A woman up against it who'd been in a bad place for a long, long time. And it was my job to do my best to give her a chance to have a meaningful opportunity to be successful in this world. My daughter graduated from George Washington University, worked for CNN, became a producer, now is an attorney, and been practicing for 6 years in Atlanta, Georgia. I, on the other hand, I'm in counseling, I'm getting therapy, and and when I leave New York after the Super Bowl, I'm going to Houston because my daughter and I are going to start a law practice in Houston, Texas, together. I'm not doing any work now. I'm the pretty face, okay? But I tell you that story to let you know that though it looks like I've had this great run and everything was smooth and rosy, education got me where I was. And my desire to get my daughter an education got her where she is today. It changed her life and it changed mine. I don't know who got the better deal from my union with my daughter. I think I did. It made me a man. It made me understand my place in society. And it made me understand the need to give back. It made me understand the need to get involved in others' lives and recognize that I'm not the only show in town. So I hope that all of you understand the message that I'm trying to relate. I'm not the most articulate brother in the world, but I tell you what, I do my best. And if I can't get to you, it wasn't because I didn't try. What it'll give me a chance to do is try again. So I'm going to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for taking the time and listening to me. Thank you for not killing me for bringing this rain. And thank you for sitting back and taking the time to better yourselves, taking the classes offered by this fine institution and these fine people and these all professors who really want to work with you and make your lives better. Thank you for investing in yourself, your family, and your community. And I'm going to say before I get off, if anybody has a question of me, feel free. I am not a person who's going to just talk at you. If you don't have a question, feel free. You can reach out to me later on. But I tell you, I'm very, very enthused at what I see today, and I hope I did something to be an asset to this overall conference that is one of the best conferences I've ever seen. Thank you all very much.
We've got a little time to take some questions, so if you've got some questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Fowler, this is your opportunity. So, you know what opportunity is? When training, you know what luck is? Luck is when training and opportunity meet each other. So, we're lucky to have him. You have an opportunity to ask some questions. Hey, right.
My ears are burning. Oh, yeah, I lit him up, didn't I?
I just wanted to know, there are a lot of men in the African-American Midtown community that are not present in the homes of the single-parent families. And what one thing do you think we could do as a community to sound the horn and get more men involved with their children's education?
That's a tough one. Do I have a microphone? Oh, yeah. That's a real tough one. That's one of the ones we dealt with at the academy all the time. You know, the moms would be involved with the kids, bring them to the programs, be there for the various things that we do, but a lot of times the dads wouldn't. And we would do our best to have days where it was structured just for them to come out. And what we did was we tried to deal with the very issues that kept them from there. Now, a lot of times it was issues that was far and beyond what we could do as a baseball organization, but we would let them know that they were welcome. Let them know that they were not going to be criticized for their absence or the reason for their absence, because more often than not, in our community, they have no opportunity to come out because they're incarcerated. And so we have to, and when they get out, we've got to make them welcome and embrace them and not shun them away, and find a way to get them back integrated into the community and into society. One of the failings of our society is that it's a pathway back into society is so difficult once you've gone behind bars. And I think that's one of the things that we always try to do, is make them feel welcome and provide opportunities for them when they do show up. That was a tough one. I thought I was going to get a softball. That was high and tight.
How do you teach people to, like, how do you help people help themselves? Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. That's always going to be that's a lifelong problem. helping people to help themselves. I mean, first you got to open their eyes that they can help themselves, that there is a pathway to help. A lot of people don't go out and do it because they don't think they can do it. In fact, I was reading a story as I flew up here about these elephants that are tied to these poles and these stakes by a little thin rope. And the man kept asking, why won't they just break away from that rope? They're much more powerful than that little rope and that little stake in the ground. So the handler walked over to him and he said, well, that's a very simple reason for that. When they're little bitty babies, we tie them up with the same rope and we put them with the same stake. And they're not strong enough to pull out. So they're conditioned to believe they can't pull out. So when they grow up big and strong, even though they can just move their leg and break free, they think they can't because they're conditioned that way. We must break the bonds of condition that you can't help yourself. You got to know that you can. And just because you've been conditioned one way doesn't mean it is that way. You must test, and test the boundaries at all times to make sure that you're doing all you can to help yourself. That's what I think. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, that was the toughest thing for me because I thought that's what they were going to ask me to do in this overall presentation. That's why I told you the story about my daughter. Because for me, at that time, I saw that entire situation as an inconvenience to an otherwise well-laid plan by yours truly. So, and the most important thing to me at that point was me. So I had to make a determination that there was something more important in life than me, and that I needed to put my efforts as much into somebody else and their future, even though it set me back probably a couple of years in my professional career by virtue of focusing on hers and not seeking the advancement of going through the profession I was in. I felt that I was now hindering my career in order to help hers. But in reality, what I was doing was I was growing as a man. My profession may have suffered somewhat, if you want to call it that. But as a person, as a man, I became a man because I recognized my obligation to my family. I recognized my obligation to my community. I recognized an obligation to make things better. It made me a better person. In fact, I was dating a woman when my daughter showed up, and we were about to break up. And when my daughter showed up, after a while, the lady and I got back together. So one day we were talking later on, and I said, whatever happened? I thought all the turmoil that was going on with my daughter, you would not put up with that. She says, you became a much better person because the first time in my life, I saw you look at somebody else as more important than you. And then you became a man in my eyes that I did not want to leave. So I think the moral to that story is you got to look at your position in society and accept the responsibility of being a man, even though sometimes it's inconvenient, even though sometimes it's hard. You can't just walk away from that responsibility once you've accepted the reins of that responsibility. That's how I look at it. Yes, sir.
I got the mic, but it's not on. I'm just going to scream right at you directly. As you look around, you see a lot of individuals that are future business people. I think I've worked with a lot of these young men, and it looks like they're going to be successful. What type of, I guess, what tip would you have, if there's one thing, because I'm sure there's many, but if there's one thing that you kept in mind throughout your journey in business, what would that be, and how, if you could relay that to the group, myself included as a young business professional, always looking for tips?
All right. I always say success lies at the intersection of preparation and opportunity. See, opportunities come and they go. The door opens, it closes. The window opens and it shuts. When it's going to open, you don't know. Only thing you can control is your preparation. You see, how did I get into baseball? I got into Major League Baseball on a chance meeting with the deputy commissioner of baseball. Fay Vincent was the commissioner. Steve Greenberg was the deputy commissioner. I had gone to New York to see a buddy and hang out. My buddy was going to the Sports Lawyers Association luncheon. Free food, free drinks. I'm in. Maybe he'll get some girls there. Who knew? So we went to the reception. While I'm standing there eating Swedish meatballs like a dog, who was beside me? The deputy commissioner of baseball, doing the same thing. So we started talking. He says, what do you do? I said, I'm an attorney. Where do you work? Baker and Hostetler. He said, Baker and Hostetler. You know Jim Garner? I said, yeah, he's a partner in the Cleveland office. He says, yeah, he does some stuff for our American League. I said, yeah, I know him. He said, you know, we've got a lot of problems with our minor league system. I said, well, I know a lot about that. And so I explained to him how I would handle all the problems in the minor leagues. Shortly thereafter, he offered me the job as executive director of minor league operations. You say, what do you know about minor league baseball, and how did you know it at that particular time? I knew nothing about minor league baseball. Nothing. Let me tell you what I did know, though. A buddy of mine that lived on my street in my block in Washington, D.C., a Washington Post reporter, his name was David Lamb. He took a sabbatical from Washington Post one year to go through the minor leagues, and he wrote a book called A Stolen Season. Every day he'd go to a different minor league ballpark, and he'd write about his experience and about the problems minor leagues were facing. I had that book because he had a book signing about 3 weeks before. Gave everybody a signed copy of the book, and free drinks, free food. I was there. All right? I got the book, threw it in the back, and when I went to Annapolis with my girlfriend for a weekend, I was bored. There were no iPads, iPhones, none of that stuff. So you'd read books. So I read A Stolen Season. I read through it, and as I was prone to do as a lawyer, I posed solutions to the problems I saw. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm talking to the Deputy Commissioner of Baseball, and guess what? I've got the answers. 2 weeks later, I had the job. Okay? Question? Yes, sir. Go.
Well, as a future educator, I'm just wondering, how do you build a partnership between the guardians and the teachers to build better students?
Oh, I guess you got to educate the guardians also. I mean, everybody has to be educated to be, one of the things that we found at the academies was that we had to get those who were, I'm assuming the guardians, you mean the guardians of the kids? The parents, okay, the parents, yes, okay. Okay, one of the things that we had to do was get buy-in from a guardian or a parent. So what we did was we created programs for them so that they would have a meaningful role actually there. Now, most of the parents treated us as babysitters. So basically, we babysat their kid from the time school ended till the time they got home from work. And they had no connection with the academy. Well, I didn't like that. I wanted them to be mentally and emotionally invested also. Not a babysitter, actually a part of their psyche, so they understand the role we're trying to play in this. We're not trying to replace the school. We're trying to supplement what the school's doing. But they were obligated to come down to the academy, and if they had skill set issues that they weren't learning, for instance, computer skills was a big deal. We had a whole computer science lab, and we could teach them how to use a computer. We could teach them things they needed to do. Those who were English challenged, we could teach them English. We could teach them how to integrate themselves into the working class of that community. So what you do is you've got to provide a curriculum for the parents, much the same as I was speaking earlier about how getting the men to come back in, making sure they have things that they can use, giving somebody something that they can use, and make them understand the value it has for their children. That's how you do it. You got to be invested in it. They can't just use you as a babysitter while they're at work. Okay? Yep.
At one point of time in your life, were you ever shy or timid about
I'm
going
shy and
before
timid
people?
right now.
Yeah. How would you give advice to people who are shy or timid about going and speaking to large crowds?
Okay. I use a couple little tricks. I am very shy. I get very nervous before I speak. So what I do is, it's a mechanism I use. First is humor. I crack jokes. I make you laugh. That way I can tell jokes. You know, everybody's laughing, getting ready. And then I deflect everything to somebody else. I picked Frank this time. So I picked Frank, and he became a foil in a joke I was telling. I didn't need him to be here because I asked him about himself before so I could describe him to you. So you're all thinking about Frank, not about me. You see? And then now you're on my side. Now you're pulling for me. So now I get comfortable. And now we start the speech. And everybody in the crowd, they like me now. You see? That's a mechanism I use to keep from being nervous. I'll give you my secrets. When I write the book, it's going to cost you about $10 though, okay? Next.
I'm a member of the Max Club, and a lot of students like me come to college, and you have a whole lot of options in college, options I didn't know about. So how did you figure out what you was going to do when you went to college?
Whoa, now that's a real good one there. You know, it's a lot of luck, but also I'm gonna actually make it relevant here to this weekend. There's a kid that's going to quarterback for Seattle this weekend. His name is Russell Wilson. And I'm pulling for Seattle, and actually Russell and I are friends. You say, well, how is that? Well, Russell's father and I went to college together. Russell's father and I were roommates during football season and during the football off season, and we traveled as roommates on the road. His name is Harry Wilson. Harrison Wilson was a year ahead of me. Harrison Wilson's bigger brother, Ben, went to Dartmouth College and Harvard. His younger brother, John, went to Dartmouth College also. His father, Benjamin, was the president of Norfolk State. So Harry knew all the ins and outs of academia. He knew he wanted to be a lawyer. He knew he wanted to go to Harvard Law School. He knew all the system and how it worked. I was from backwoods, Texas. I was the first person from my family to ever go to college. You know, except for my grandfather's couple of weeks he spent in Tuskegee. So I basically spent time with Harry, understanding what he was doing and emulating those things that he did. Spending time and made him my mentor, teaching me the ropes, if you will, so that I could figure out what I wanted to do and what I was best at. Find out what you're best at. Find out where your passion is. If you can monetize that, that's great. But you find where it is, and then you apply yourself by finding a mentor. The mentors don't find you. You find the mentor. You make him your mentor. You make her your mentor by hanging around and asking questions, letting them know who you are. The reason they're here is because they're into that. So it's not a tough sell if they know you really are serious about what you're saying. Open your mouth, say, this is who I am, this is what I'd like, and I'm sure 3 or 4 hands will go up and say, I'll help you get there. Okay? Thank you.
Two-part question.
Only one part today.
Oh,
Go on.
all right. You talked about setting up the academies, the minor league academies. So first question is, what was your criteria for finding the cities for setting up the academies? And the second part to the question is, Tampa is a baseball-rich area. What are the chances of one of those academies coming to the Tampa Bay area? Because I didn't hear one of the academies being in this area.
The criteria were very simple. Compton was a different story because Compton was going to be my academy that I was going to do without the affiliation of a major league or a minor league club. So we didn't care that Compton was not situated in Los Angeles or in Anaheim. Didn't matter. We were going to support that. In fact, the budget for that academy came up through to me. So that was a different story. But that was supposed to get everybody's appetite wet for having an academy. And Houston Astros stepped up. They held their arm up, held their hand up. We want to be involved in an academy. That's why Houston and the city of Houston and the state of Houston got involved. And a state representative named Sylvester Turner, who went to law school with me, was all ginned up to put it in his community. So I had all those elements working together. It made for a good fit. The others are very similar. You've got to have the community interested in getting involved. The mayor, the city council, the governor, whomever must be interested. And then it's a bonus, of course, if the club is interested. And it's hard for them not to be interested in something that relates to their sport, especially as they're trying to get things from their community to help them, new facilities, new this, new that. So they'll get involved. So that mixture, and then when Major League Baseball comes in and provides the programmatical oversight and budgetary money if they have enough budget, those are the type of formulas you need to get an academy built.